The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and earth as it gently swept through the forest, rustling the leaves and whispering across the lake's surface. The sky, a soft palette of pinks, purples, and oranges, reflected off the water, painting the entire scene in hues that seemed too beautiful to be real. A perfect day, thought Evelyn, as she stood on the rocky shore of the mountain lake in northern Washington, staring out at the serene, still water. The lake had always been her sanctuary, a place where she felt a connection to something greater, something eternal. Nestled between snow-capped peaks, it was as if the world itself had cradled this place in its arms, protecting it from the chaos and noise of life. Here, time slowed, and the troubles of the world seemed to fade away, leaving only the gentle lap of water against stone and the occasional call of a distant bird. Evelyn took a deep breath, savoring the cool, clean air as it filled her lungs. The sun was beginning its descent, casting long shadows across the landscape. She knew it wouldn't be long now. As the sun set behind the towering mountains, so too would her life draw to a close. This was her final day on Earth, and she intended to spend every last moment of it in this place, where she had always felt most alive. She had chosen this day carefully. It was the anniversary of the day she had first come to the lake, many years ago, when she was a young woman full of hope and dreams. That day had been as perfect as this one, the kind of day that made you believe in the possibility of anything. She had come here to escape, to think, to breathe, and she had found something that had stayed with her ever since, a sense of peace, of belonging, that she had never found anywhere else. Over the years, life had taken her far from the mountains and the lake. She had married, had children, built a career, and lived a life full of the usual ups and downs. But no matter where she was, this place was always with her, in the back of her mind, a constant reminder of the beauty and serenity that existed in the world. Whenever she could, she would return, if only for a day, to reconnect with the land, the water, and herself. But today was different. Today, there would be no return, no going back to the life she had built. Today, she had come to say goodbye, not just to the lake, but to everything. She had made her peace with it, had accepted that this was the end, and she felt no fear, only a deep, profound sense of calm. Evelyn knelt by the water's edge, trailing her fingers through the cool, clear water. The sensation was familiar, comforting, like the touch of an old friend. She closed her eyes and let herself drift back to all the times she had been here before, all the memories she had made in this place. She could see them all so clearly, her younger self, laughing and splashing in the water, the quiet moments of reflection as she sat on the shore, watching the sun rise or set, the times she had come here in joy and sorrow, in need of solace. As she opened her eyes, she noticed a small pebble at her feet. Picking it up, she turned it over in her hand, feeling its smooth surface, marveling at how such a simple object could hold so much history, shaped by the forces of nature over countless years. She tossed it gently into the lake, watching as it created ripples that spread out across the surface, distorting the reflection of the sky. It was a small act, but it felt significant, a reminder that even the smallest actions could have far-reaching consequences. The sun was lower now, its light softening as it dipped closer to the horizon. Evelyn stood, brushing the dirt from her jeans, and began to walk along the shore. She wanted to take in every last detail, to imprint the sights, sounds, and smells of this place into her memory, so that they would be with her until the very end. She walked slowly, her feet sinking slightly into the sand, her eyes scanning the landscape, taking in the towering trees, the rocky cliffs, the way the light danced on the water. She stopped at a familiar spot, a large, flat rock that jutted out over the lake, and climbed onto it. From here, she could see the entire lake, the mountains in the distance, and the sky above, now streaked with brilliant shades of red and gold. She sat down, letting her legs dangle over the edge, and leaned back on her hands, tilting her head up to the sky. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when everything would come together, the beauty of the earth, the peace of the water, the warmth of the sun. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for this day, but for her entire life, for all the experiences, good and bad, that had led her to this point. She had lived a full life, had loved and been loved, had known joy and sorrow, had made mistakes and learned from them. And now, as she sat on this rock, watching the sun set on her final day, she felt nothing but contentment. As the sun dipped lower, the temperature began to drop, and Evelyn wrapped her arms around herself, savoring the cool air on her skin. She could feel the life in her body, the steady beat of her heart, the rise and fall of her breath, and she knew that soon it would all come to an end. But she wasn't afraid. She had made her peace with it, had accepted that this was her time. She stood up and walked back to the water's edge, her movements slow and deliberate. The sun was just a sliver now, the sky ablaze with color, the water reflecting it back in a mirror image. She took off her shoes and socks, feeling the cool sand beneath her feet, and stepped into the water. It was cold, but not unpleasantly so, and she waded in deeper, feeling the water rise up around her legs, her hips, her waist. When she was waist deep, she stopped, letting the water support her weight as she closed her eyes and tilted her head back. She could feel the sun's last rays on her face, could hear the gentle lapping of the water, the distant call of a bird, the rustle of leaves in the breeze. It was as if the entire world had come together to create this perfect moment, just for her. As the sun finally disappeared behind the mountains, Evelyn took a deep breath and let herself sink into the water, feeling it close over her head, cool and soothing. She opened her eyes, looking up at the surface, now darkening as the light faded, and watched as the last traces of the sun's glow disappeared, leaving her in complete darkness. For a moment, she floated there, weightless, suspended between the earth and the sky, between life and death. And then, with a sense of calm that she had never known before, she let go, allowing herself to sink deeper into the water, feeling the cold embrace her, pulling her down, down, down into the depths. As she descended, she felt a strange sense of peace, as if she were returning to where she had always belonged, to a place of rest and stillness. The water around her grew colder, darker, and she could feel her body growing heavier, her movements slower. But she didn't fight it, she welcomed it, knowing that this was her final journey. Her thoughts drifted back to her life, to the people she had loved, the places she had been, the things she had done. She saw their faces, heard their voices, felt their touch, and she knew that she had lived a good life, a full life. And now, it was time to let go, to leave it all behind. As the darkness closed in around her, Evelyn smiled, a small, serene smile that spoke of acceptance, of peace. She had come to this place to say goodbye, and now, as the last traces of light faded from the surface of the water, she knew that she had found what she was looking for. She had found her final sunset, her final moment of beauty and peace, and she was ready to let it all go. And so, as the night fell over the mountains and the lake, as the world above her continued on its way, Evelyn's existence came to a quiet, peaceful close, just as she had always known it would.